We've been working our way through all of these fun rocks. This is part 4. We've got 4 more tutorials to show you today. So I am using my water-based extra fine tip paint pens here. These are in the jewel tones. And then you're just going to go ahead and take a wet paintbrush and you're going to work your way along the inside edge of your ghost. So just first fill kind of that space with water, and then you can come back through and kind of wiggle the tip of your paintbrush along that line to kind of loosen up a little bit more paint and to give you a nice variant going from the edge to the inside of the ghost. I did this in 5 different colors. They were all so cool. Set them aside to dry, and these do dry pretty quick. I did not use a blow dryer during the live. They were dried up within minutes. Once they're dry, you're going to add on your faces. I like to do 2 bigger eyes and 1 smaller mouth. And then obviously give that some dry time and then come back and double dot your eyes. Now when I double dot the highlights, I dot in the same spot multiple times to get the bigger dot, and then 1 single one down and to the right. Next up we have our candy corn flowers. So we're going to start off by giving ourselves a yellow center to our flower, and then we're going to build out kind of like a bullseye. So we're going to do white, and then we're going to do orange, and the white is going to be smaller. Orange is the biggest section on the candy corn, so you're going to make that a nice fat ring. And then we're going to come back and do a skinnier yellow ring around the outside. That's what these dual tip pens are perfect for, this because you can kind of bounce back and forth between sizes on these, and they're the exact same colors. Now don't worry too much about it being a perfect circle. Like if you look at a handful of candy corns, the rings and lines on them are not perfectly straight all the time, so it will be just fine. Now we have to have these flowers growing from somewhere, so we're going to add on a stem, a leaf, and a little bit of ground. You can give it some more texture when you do lining, but you don't need to add too much detail here. Let that layer dry, go back, give it a second layer. You want your colors to be nice and bright for your flowers. Now when applying that second coat, don't use much pressure. You're trying to lay this on top of the paint below. Even if it's dry to the touch, you can get that paint moving. So try to only touch each space once, unless you've allowed it to dry like overnight. Now we're going to do the lining. So we are going to put little hash marks on here to split our flower into petals. So we have an idea about how wide we're going to be making each one of our candy corn pieces or our petal pieces. Once your hashes are on there, you are going to create these triangle tips, but they are going to have a rounded tip, and you're going to avoid the yellow in the center. So the white should be the tip of the petal. So just work your way all the way around your circle. And then you're going to come back around the outside edge and finish off the back side of your candy corn. You're going to give it a little bit of rounded corners. And you can always come back through here and touch up with your extra fine tip anywhere. Like if you round the corners on the outside edge, sometimes you might need to like fill them in just the littlest bit. Also going to come back through and line your stem, your leaf, the grass surrounding the flower. And these are done. They're just so cute, and these are so fast and perfect for fall, not even necessarily have to be used for Halloween. Now we're going to do our haunted house silhouettes. Now again, these are water-based paint pens. You can do this with any color of water-based paint pen that you like. It works great on these white slices because it kind of soaks up some of this water and the color to give a really cool watercolor effect to build our silhouettes on. So as you can see, I just got a brush with some water and I'm just wetting this paint. I'm applying a little bit of pressure so I don't have any stripes underneath, and then I'm bringing that paint all the way to the edge of the rock. You can add as much water as you want. The more water you add, the more washed out of a color you will have when it's all said and done, and you can play around with all sorts of different colors for these stones. Now obviously set these aside to dry all the way before you do your silhouettes, but they did dry and have the silhouettes put on them within this live tutorial, so you don't even need overnight for this, and also you could speed it up with a blow dryer if you want. So you will want an extra fine tip paint pen for doing these haunted houses. They just work so well to get nice sharp lines and to get into the tiny little areas for the details. So the thing to keep in mind while doing these haunted houses is you do not have to be architecturally sound. You can build your houses however you want. This first one I'm going to show you is so wonky and strange looking. I was building it live and I don't know, I lost my train of thought a few times because I was stopping and talking and commenting. And as you can see here, by the time we get everything on here, it will look great. So just build triangles and squares and shapes all around, and you're going to fill them with windows. Now the windows are going to be what lets that color through. So I try to make my windows almost as large as possible. When you start coming back to fill them in later, like it really does fill up the space. So just leave the windows as large as possible. You can always make them smaller, but you can never make them bigger when you start filling in the design. So just remember the outside edge is all that's going to show. You can create whatever shapes you want. You can do fence lines. You'll see on some of these I've done tombstones to the side. Play around with different details. Anything really goes in these designs. So once you're kind of happy with the layout that you have going on, you are going to fill in all the negative space black on your stone, and you'll see the whole thing comes together. This is one that I refer to when we're doing it live as a trust the process rock. It looks so messy until we are filling it all in. Now I am going to speed up the fill-in process here of this stone because it just takes a while to do. Take your time when you're doing it, and then you can adjust those outside lines when you're done and add more fun details like chimneys, bats hanging from the ceiling, whatever you want to do. And a final step that I like to do is I give it a nice crisp black edge. And I use the other end of the paint pen for this because then it's nice and thick. You don't have to worry about ruining your paint pen. Just work your way all the way around. It really is a great finishing touch for these stones. So I'm going to quickly work through one more here just so you can see how different each and every one of these stones will be. If you want, you can pause here at the end to see all 5 designs to get some inspiration. Last but certainly not least was this skeleton peace sign stone. These were fun. We are going to break down the shape of the hand. I'm going to keep this nice and slow paced, but I'm going to show what I'm doing here. So I go back and forth and show my hand. I'm making lines based on the basic shape of a hand so that I have kind of a general idea of where my pieces should align. So I'm putting the knuckle lines on there. I'm even putting the ones that you can't see. Now the middle finger is going to be straight up and down from that center spot on your palm. So you can go ahead and put that line on there. And then your second finger, it doesn't go straight up and down. See, if it's straight up and down, it would be touching. So it kind of leans out to the left a little bit. And you're going to see here too, I'm just going to put a line down for this one. A lot of the bones I place down as lines first, and then you can come back and create the rectangle shapes on it. Like you can break this finger into 3 pieces. Now I like to break at least one of the fingers into 3 so that you can gauge like how big is the tip of the finger, because we're going to use that size when we come back down here to place our thumb. Now you're going to put your thumb right across that middle line, and it's going uphill slightly. And then you can build out the rest of the thumb with just lines for now. You can thicken those up later. Now we have to have the thumb on top of the tip of the ring and pinky finger. When we build this out, it's going to be all one blob, but the lining will break that apart. We're going to build our ring finger. So the first bone actually goes up, and then you have the bone that comes down and towards your thumb, and then the tip under the thumb. Okay. So on these, I went ahead and built out the shape of the bone slightly. Again, with the pinky, it goes up a little bit, and then it's going to come back down towards that thumb. Again, the tip is going to be under the thumb. Now we have to build out the palm bones. Now I don't do a lot of details with this. Just go ahead and make sure each one of the fingers has a line that comes down to that center kind of palm area. And then we're going to just start going around and building out all of our lines that we had for bones. They are all placed. Now we're just thickening them up and putting them in sections. That thumb should be in 3 sections. The white can touch. We're going to break it apart with lining. So even if your white all kind of touches together, you're not going to have a problem because the lining will break it apart. That's why this one, once you see it broken down, it's very forgiving. These are my favorite kind of tutorials. So again, all the bones are on. Let it dry first, then come back with the color of your choice. I'm using blue here. You could use black. You could use whatever color you want. You can see I did a bunch of different colors. Now, when we get to the thumb, again, you want your thumb to be on top. So you want to make sure the tip of your ring finger and pinky finger are under the square of the thumb. That's going to pull off the look. That's like one of the key things to pull it all off when it's done. Come back with your white so your white is nice and bright. Again, if you need to touch up with your outline color, do so. They look so cool. Again, try them in all sorts of colors. Let me know what you think about these fun rocks. We've got one more video to go. We've got our eyeballs, boo dangles, bats, and zombie rocks up next. I hope you're enjoying all these fun Halloween rock painting tutorials.